All right, guys, with Batman vs. Superman heading to AMC screens in 2016 and a full slate of DC film dates announced, Warner Brothers is moving full steam ahead with its comic book properties. But according to an article at HitFix, they may be moving ahead without any humor. The article's author, Drew McWeeny, claims that he has heard from 5 different sources that WB has issued a mandate for their upcoming DC films, and the rule is simply no jokes. John, what are your thoughts on the article and the possibility of a no jokes rule at Warner Brothers for their upcoming comic book films?
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad. I mean, look, here's the thing. First of all, we should kind of point out that Drew, as a writer, we all actually we know and we all respect and we think he's really good. And so when he writes something like that, you got to take it seriously. Now, with a grain of salt, this is also the same guy who claimed he was confirming that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was going to be the new Batman. That didn't work out. So we're all prone to that, to hearing bad information and whatever, sure. But when it comes to reliability, Drew's one of the more reliable guys. And he says he's heard it from multiple places that DC's put out a mandate, no jokes. In any of these DC movies, no humor. Okay, so he brings up a couple interesting points. Number one, if this is true, it looks like it's reactionary to the disaster they had with Green Lantern. I didn't hate Green Lantern. I did not like Green Lantern, but I didn't hate it. There was enough stuff in there that actually made it almost watchable for me. Still a massive disappointment in every sense of the word. But the funny thing is that the kind of watchable parts of Green Lantern for me was the humor. Was Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds and doing the thing. What was terrible was an awful villain, awful dialogue, awful setup, like everything else that they kind of blew and messed up, right? And then, at the same time, Warner Brothers has this incredibly successful thing, the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight series. That is, it's all deadly serious. Swear to me, you know, that sort of stuff. So okay, so there's a reaction there to say, well, let's just go to what we know worked for us and go stay away from something that didn't work for us. But it would be a problem of misidentifying what your problems were and what they weren't. Humor in Green Lantern was not the problem. Humor in bad comic book films isn't the problem. It's, you know, used right. And Drew kind of points out in his article, I completely agree with him, that humor in any type of movie is a great tool to have in your toolkit as a filmmaker. Let's even look at a film like Argo, right? Written by the same guy who's writing Batman vs. Superman, starring the same guy who starred at Batman vs. Superman. Argo is a deadly serious film with the highest of stakes and one of the history turning point in our time. And yet, as a filmmaker, Ben Affleck knew that to make sure that the audience doesn't get buried or drown in the heaviness and the seriousness of it, really well-placed moments of humor and gag. You know, Argo F yourself, you know, and other things like that, peppered throughout the film that gave the film an overall great temperature. It was a great tool to use. Was Argo a comedy? Obviously not, but it was used right. Not everything can be Batman. How can you do a Flash movie? Not that we know that they're doing a Flash movie. How can you possibly do a Flash movie and say, no jokes? You can't, unless you're going to completely undermine the character of who the Flash is. I mean, once again, we're talking here on the assumption that what Drew heard was accurate and what he heard was right. Because there's a big possibility this is all bull and you know, nobody at Warner Brothers has actually said no jokes. But if they did, it's a huge mistake. It's a massively huge mistake, and I think it would just be the wrong. Look, some people are already telling me online, but John, you know, you don't want it to be, they don't want to just copy Marvel, because Marvel uses a lot of humor. Well, that's like saying, well, don't have anybody's superpowers, because Marvel does movies with people with superpowers. Don't do anything with drama, because Marvel uses drama. I mean, it's just another tool in a filmmaker's tool bag, and to just completely discard it, I think would be completely ludicrous. Completely ludicrous. Anyway, Schnepp, you read this story, you heard about all this, and you've got your foot in these worlds as well. When you hear something like this, what do you think the rationale is here?
Well, to be honest, like my perspective on that article that Drew wrote is like, hey, look, I'm not joining the no jokes club. I don't think that it was I don't think it's a mandate saying there can be no humorous scenes. It's all about tone. That's what I came away from it is if they had a meeting, a general meeting, like with all the screenwriters who are all writing the cinematic DC universe, they're like, look at Man of Steel, look at Dark Knight, and then over in this corner, let's look at Green Lantern. Now, it's not that it was a jokey film, it was the tone and consistency of that film, where it was like super dark, weird, giant-headed villains and poop clouds and stuff, versus, you know, Ryan Reynolds being all extra jokey, which is that's not the character of Green Lantern.
Right.
If you read the comic books, you'd know that is not Hal Jordan. He wasn't all jokey and making fun of the thing. It was like, it bothered me as just a fan of the comic book character that, hey, I get Ryan Reynolds, I think he's a good actor and he's funny. He's ill-suited. He would be a great Deadpool. He would be a bunch of million other characters. But with his sense of humor being brought into the Green Lantern and kind of infused into it, it didn't work. And you know, I think the no jokes mandate that might be being said is saying, if you're going to have humor, make sure that it works within the script. Like your example of Argo, there's humor, but it's from a character who's being sarcastic. That's not a joke, that's just the character. Yeah. So you can always there are humorous moments in Dark Knight. You know, I'm going to take the Lamborghini. There's all different kinds of little jokes and in-jokes that allow levity and some tension break when you have a little, but it's not a joke. So I think that's what it is take the characters in the universe seriously. That's how I read the no jokes clause.
So if this is true and that no jokes thing is out, you're interpreting them as not saying hard and fast rule, don't write gags. You're saying, in generally speaking, we are not going for a funny tone.
Correct.
See, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
If that's, but I mean, I didn't get that from the article. But if you're right, I'm totally all for it.
Yeah, I'm with Shep completely. I think, first of all, I can't imagine a studio would come out with a mandate for 7 or 6 or 10 or 11 films that says no jokes. It's just ridiculous because, to your point, all stories require breathing room, whether it's in a book or a movie. Everybody, the people reading, people watching have to have a minute to recover from a big action set piece, like Drew mentions in his article, or from a really tense, sad moment or a really high stakes moment. So I think to put out the mandate that there should be no humor is not realistic. I don't think the studio would have said that, but I do think you're right that maybe it is a tonal thing where they're saying, we are setting ourselves apart from Marvel, but it's also, if you look at the DC characters, as someone who didn't grow up reading loads of comic books, and I would hardly call myself a comic book nerd, if you were to go to the farthest corner of the world and show somebody, let's say this is pre-Avengers, show somebody a picture of Batman and a picture of Iron Man, guaranteed more people are going to know who Batman is. The DC characters have a certain level of iconic transcendence.
At least 2 of them do.
Right.
2 of them do, exactly. But you know, I think there is a certain reverence and respect that Warner Brothers treats the characters with, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't think it's bad to differentiate themselves from Marvel. I think, if anything, they have to do that because Marvel is doing what they do so beautifully well that it would be silly for them to be like, well, let's just do what Marvel does. They're taking the darkness of Batman. They did the Dark Knight trilogy, and now Man of Steel was very moody, and I know a lot of people had problems with it. I actually liked the film, and I
loved Man of Steel.
I really loved it too.
that.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was beautiful, and I thought it was really well done, and I think the world is well realized. I'm really excited for Batman v Superman, and I think it's actually wise, if what you're saying is true, for Warner Brothers to say, listen, jokes are going to be in context. This is a serious thing. We're telling serious stories about superheroes with very high stakes, and you know, Marvel does a great job of bringing together ragtag teams and making it fun and making the dynamic really electric and really magnetic and really quick. And I think if Warner Brothers is trying to move away from that, I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think I'd like to see an entire Batman v Superman movie based on the characters in the How It Should Have Ended universe, where the 2 animated ones are always sitting in that coffee shop. So like Superman, when you fart, does it cause a tornado? Yeah. But even like you're talking about differentiating themselves from, they've already started to do that even just visually, right? Like look at this picture.
Yeah.
If you look at a conglomeration of the Marvel Cinematic Universe character, bright, colorful, lots of that kind of stuff, and that kind of carries over in the tone as well. Here, obviously, more subdued, more matted, more darker. I hate using that word, but darker, you know. And if they're just going for that in tone, that might not be a bad mistake. It would just be a mistake to say, make sure there's no jokes.
I'd say more cinematic, almost. It's like just using darks and lights and stuff like that. I mean.
Well, also, The Dark Knight Returns being source material is super dark.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you compare that to Guardians of the Galaxy. You can't even compare Guardians of the Galaxy to this. So I feel like that's a bad argument.
You're also taking the lead from Zack Snyder, who directed an amazing adaptation of Watchmen. You know, he did a great job with Man of Steel, and now he's doing this movie. So that's the cinematic lead for the rest of the DC universe to take from.
Hey everyone, if you like this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.